Welcome ladies and gents, Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. I want to start off talking about Benn and Van Heerden. I also want to talk a little bit about Chris Billam-Smith and McCarthy. We'll talk about Cruz as well. We'll touch on Campbell Hatton. We'll talk about Crowley, who also fought in the Spence-UGAS undercard. I have done the review for Spence-UGAS, so if you have yet to see that video, please check it out. It's on my channel. But I do want to add some additional comments because of some of the things that people have been saying since then. So I just want to relay some things. Depends on how long this video will go. Hopefully I can add it on to the end of this. We'll start off with Conor Benn. You know, he destroyed Van Heerden after 2 rounds. I was one of the people that actually thought that Van Heerden could take him a few rounds. I thought he's a big, durable, awkward southpaw who is very experienced, and Benn does make some errors. He's crude. So maybe Van Heerden will be able to keep him honest and land some shots in between Conor Benn's shots, make him think a little bit and stuff like that. Well, in the first round, you could see why it is that I thought that. You know, Conor Benn, as I've said in the past, when he throws a shot, he generates so much power for a welterweight because of the leverage he generates and the aggression and velocity in which he throws himself into punches. But what can happen is he over leverages. So he'll throw a shot, and if he misses the shot, he goes beyond the line to such an extent that it takes a split second to reset. If he then throws a hook, he's going to go beyond the line of where he should go. If it lands, he's going to take your head off your shoulders. But if it doesn't, he then needs to turn back. So if you're able to make him miss and punch in between those moments with shorter shots, you're going to land a lot of shots on Conor Benn. And you saw Van Heerden was punching with him and landing a whole bunch of shots in the first round. He had to eat a few big ones too, but he is landing in between those. Now, over the course of a 12-round fight, Conor Benn might not be able to maintain that level of aggression and velocity in his shots, whereas what Van Heerden was doing is more sustainable. So the question is, how do I get Conor Benn into the latter half of the fight without accruing too much damage and be able to punch him on the inside? This is probably why guys like, I don't know, a Povetkin type welterweight, say, a guy with short power, is being kept away from Conor Benn. A lot of people are saying he's not in there with punches. There's a reason for that probably, because as Conor Benn starts to load up and miss, if he's caught with a short shot so that a guy doesn't have to load with him and that short shot carries power, Conor Benn could end up being in serious trouble. And a lot of people get frustrated about this and they're saying, listen, we want to see Avanesian, enough of fighting these bums. Listen, the guys that he's fought are not bums, but what happens is the style in which Conor Benn fights, they're not punches, that's true, but the style in which he fights means that if he's going to be successful, he's probably going to blow you out early. So a lot of people, for instance, are calling for the Avanesian fight. If that fight happens, if Conor Benn's going to win the fight, he's going to spark him out early. Would that then mean that Avanesian was a bum? Of course not. But it's just the method in which Conor Benn fights. Had one of these guys, had a Van Heerden taken him 8 rounds, you might start to see Benn having to think as he slows down. And then all of a sudden you're going to say it's a test and it's the same guy. But because he happens to land these big shots early, he takes guys out. Now the method in which he works, there's a method to that madness. Bear in mind, this is not a kid with a great amateur pedigree. So what he's done is maximized, in my humble opinion, Sims has done a great job, his the potential that he has by being so aggressive. You see, when you're forcing a guy to work at the tempo that Benn forces you to work at, he's forcing you to make errors. You know, I'm going to use the analogy of another couple of walks of life. A lot of people assume that when you're a top-level footballer, for instance, soccer player for our American viewers, and thank you to the 4K subscribers, by the way. We've hit another milestone. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you so much. And welcome aboard to all the new subscribers. I hope you continue to enjoy the content. When you're talking about top-class footballers, soccer players, for example, a lot of people assume that everything they do that's spectacular is because they're capable of doing things that a guy who's very good is incapable of doing. Not elite, but very good, just can't do. This is not always true. Sometimes it's true, but not always. Let's say, for example, you see a guy strike a ball, hit the ball, put it in the top corner from 30 yards, 30 meters, puts it right in the top corner. You'll hear a commentator sometimes say, and this is why he is who he is. This is why it's Kevin De Bruyne. This is why it's whoever, right? He's an elite level player. Other people can't do that. That's not true. Right, you can go and watch a Sunday League match and you'll see guys put the ball in the top corner from 30 yards. You'll see it in League 2. You'll see it everywhere. I've done it many times when I used to play football. If you've got a powerful shot, you've got a powerful leg, and you've got the right technique to strike the ball, you're going to put it in the top corner potentially. But the difference is not what you're capable of doing. It's the speed at which they're capable of doing it. In Sunday League or League 1, you receive the ball, you take a touch, you look up, you've got a split second, you've got a second or two, you can lace it in the top corner. in the Premier League, in the Champions League, at the highest level, when you receive the ball, you have to know instantly, before you've taken the touch, where that ball has to end up so that you can strike it in a split second before you're closed down. Same with basketball. You can sit there and give the ball to somebody, one of your friends at a local park, and he'll bounce it a couple of times, look up, shoot a beautiful three-pointer. In basketball, in the NBA, in EuroLeague, by the time you receive the ball, there's a guy there ready to shut you down. Instantly, you've got to shoot the ball before you've even set yourself. That's the difference. It's the speed at which you can do it. Not just sport, cooking. You see these guys go on MasterChef, right? They can cook a masterpiece in an hour. They give them 30 minutes. Well, now all of a sudden they're rushing. That souffle's coming out the oven just a little bit too quickly and it's collapsing on them, right? They've undercooked something. They've created the monstrosity and the critics looking at them like nose flared, wondering, what is this? And you're sitting there thinking, dude, he had to do it in half the time he's used to doing it at. That's what Conor Benn can do to you. He forces you to work at such a tempo, such a frenetic tempo, that it becomes an equalizer. He's known as the destroyer because of what he's capable of doing to you if he lands. But even if he doesn't land, he's destroying your rhythm. So it's the right moniker for him, the destroyer. He's destroying the things that you want to do. This is why, up until he gets to elite level, where guys are happy to do that at a high level, he's going to continue to blow guys out. But you can't just throw the guy in with elite level because he's not ready yet. He's still crude. So people have to be patient. Now, a lot of people are saying, yeah, but Chris, there are world level guys that, like Avanesian, right? Why don't we put him in there with him? Like I said before, if he sparks out Avanesian inside 2 rounds, is Avanesian a bum? Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see that fight. I would. And the excuses that the Eddie Hearns come up with are silly, really. Why would I put him in with Avanesian? The guy sold 400 tickets fighting a guy like Metz. Yeah, all right, Eddie, but how many tickets would Van Heerden sell if he was headlining in the UK? So it's got nothing to do with that. The truth is, it's risk versus reward. You know that potentially Avanesian could capitalise on those errors and take him out. That's a potential. But there's also the potential that Conor Benn has a puncher's chance against anybody, including the elite level guys. He's not at the level of Errol Spence or Bud Crawford or these guys. But had he been hurt, had Errol Spence been caught with a shot like Ugas caught him with last night and he'd been hurt like that, he ain't surviving. I guarantee you, if he caught Errol Spence with that 1-2 and you paused the film and you did not let me see it after that, you said to me, right, I'm going to give you evens money odds. You taking it that he's stopping him or not? I'm putting a big bet down that he's stopping him. He's getting, with the amount of time that he had, he's sparking him out. Conor Benn is a massive puncher and he's aggressive and he's accurate with his big shots and he goes for it. So while he's got technical deficiencies that are going to need time to work on, make no mistake, he's a dangerous cat, man. And he's great to watch. So people have to find that happy medium. You have to understand what it is that's going on here. Yeah, they're lying to you a little bit in the way they're trying to build up what opponents he should be fighting and so on and so forth, because they need to create the illusion that he's already a superstar in order to tap into that pay-per-view market, right? But by the same token, you've got to be realistic. If you're his promoter, you don't want him to get washed. You want him to develop. You're not going to put him in there with a killer just yet. But make no mistake, there's a lot of potential there for Conor Benn. His ascent has been rapid and it's been very impressive. Now, moving on quickly to Billam-Smith. Like I said, I'm going to talk about the undercard a little bit and then we'll add some additional notes about Spence and Ugas. Billam-Smith did some fantastic work on the inside against McCarthy. I've spoken about his inside game being the best part of his game in the past, and that's because he's physically strong and he can find space on the inside. Well, he's gone to another level on the inside. He's developed little wrinkles that I've spoken about in the past. Something that Anthony Joshua would do well, something that Bellew does very well. Something that a lot of really good inside fighters that have got some long arms do very well. Instead of him trying to hook massively and create a full rotation, he almost pins his elbow to his body. And as he's turning, he's generating the power through the rotation of his body. And his hand's almost pinned to him. So he's landing a short shot without having to pull his arm back. He's not pulling his arm back. He's just rotating into it. Bernard Hopkins used to do this as well. And so Billam-Smith carries the power to do that. And he's able to land those shots on the inside when you're off balance, because he's also pushing you back on the ropes. Another thing that Bellew did to Cleverly very well. He pushes you back on the ropes so that when you're on your heels, you're pinned. He'll also use his forearm across your face. He did this twice in the build up to the knockout. As he's got the forearm across your face, he'll then throw the right hand. The forearm moves at the last second and he lands at where the forearm was. So he's pinning your face essentially in a manner that, you know, you get away with. It's not illegal, so to speak, but the ref could have a word. but he's doing it so quickly. He's not holding him there for too long. He gets away with it. So he's developed a lot of fantastic wrinkles on the inside. At range, he's not particularly fluid. McCarthy looked more fluid and he was landing some nice 1-2s. And so you saw an adjustment. Billam-Smith started to have a higher guard and start to walk him down, basically accepting the fact that rather than try and be evasive, he was going to have to absorb some shots on the forearms and the hands, and he had good hand positioning and then force the fight on the inside. So Billam-Smith, who is also in the same gym as a colleague, who's also a terrific inside fighter, you can tell that they really work on this stuff in the gym, and it's fantastic to see the development there. So congratulations to Chris Billam-Smith for coming through that fight. You saw Isaac Cruz last night come out swinging against Gamboa and started battering him all over the place. Listen, Gamboa needs to retire, man. I don't know what he's doing. Don't people care about this guy? He's a warrior. His heart is incredible. He's always getting up, wanting to fight. But I don't care how much money you're making, man. There's no point in making that money if, God forbid, you're going to have to spend that money on medical bills down the line because you've developed some health issues. It's ludicrous. People need to put an arm around him and say, listen, I ain't training you anymore. I'm not taking that 10%. I'm not training you because I don't want your blood on my hands. Simple. In terms of Isaac Cruz, he reminds me a little bit of a mini David Chua. You know what I'm saying? He comes in low. He throws that big left hook. He's very aggressive. I think a second tank fight would be superb. You know, stylistically, those guys are always going to marry to make a great fight. But I'd also be happy to see him fight Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia fights a little bit tall. If Cruz can get low and rise up with hooks, who knows if he could catch Ryan. Ryan on the back foot is brilliant, though. He's got a lovely fast jab, a brilliant check left hook. You know, you saw him having to chase a guy like Targo. And so he looked a little bit uncomfortable in doing that sometimes. But he still made Targo look utterly intimidated and incapable of throwing anything back. So a lot of people overstate how bad that performance was against Targo, in my opinion. Targo's a decent boxer and he made him completely not want to box at all. He took that away from him completely through sheer intimidation. So it wasn't as bad as people made out, but there's work there to be done for sure on the front foot. On the back foot, he's a very good fighter though. And so as he's trying to leap in at Isaac Cruz, he's going to start getting caught with check left hooks. And if he does, how many of those is he going to take? So the point is here, there's enough intrigue there for me to want to see that fight. Definitely. I'm in. You know, Oscar De La Hoya said 1 million. He'll offer and he'll make the fight happen. I'm happy to see it. But as a spectacle, I'd rather see the rematch with Tank, to be honest with you. I know he's got Rolly coming up though. So in the interim, why not see Ryan Garcia against Isaac Cruz? It'd be a fight that'd be really entertaining. He does throw caution to the wind sometimes in the way he bobs and weaves. But he's like a mini David Chua. He does cover up and he comes and brings that heat. So he's great. Television is Isaac Cruz, so let's see how that develops. You saw Cody Crowley last night, a Canadian fighter who's undefeated, who went in against Josesito Lopez after quite a difficult start. You know, they were exchanging some furious exchanges early on. Crowley really took control, and this brings me back to Conor Benn, because when it was frenetic, the tempo early on, you could see that Josesito Lopez was having a lot of success. So it was Crowley. I'm not making out like he was getting battered or anything, but he was yet to get comfortable. As he started to slow Josesito down, what you started to see is a really good boxer emerge. He basically would turn to a southpaw stance. He'd have his lead foot way on the outside of Lopez's. So he's in a good position to line up that backhand. But he was actually leaning inside on occasion. So his head was in line with the lead shoulder of Josesito Lopez, which you don't really want to do. But he was also not just leaning inside, but leaning back. And he was using this sort of sweeping right hand, and then if Lopez was to come in too close, he'd shoot that backhand. So what would happen is he'd be just out of reach for the jab, he'd be way out of reach for the right cross. So he was dictating the tempo by dictating the reach and punishing Lopez every time Lopez was trying to throw, and he was making him fall short. So it was really a great understanding of angles and distance from Crowley. I liked what I saw from the perspective of him being a really good boxer. He understood certain things. You know, you could see he was an intelligent fighter. Nonetheless, as you saw in those first 3 or 4 rounds, you had this close fight because the tempo made him uncomfortable. He wasn't able to sit there and box and dictate the distance. And yes, you're going to have some difficult moments, of course, when a guy comes flying at you. But that's the point. With Conor Benn, you might not always get that luxury. This is my point about how he throws you off rhythm. Lopez wasn't able to do that for too long against Crowley, and Crowley was able to find that rhythm and start to outbox him and really put together some nice stuff. You know, he's a really nice boxer, Crowley. I was impressed. The question is, against a killer puncher like Benn, someone who's going to be able to set that tempo high, and I'm just using Benn as an example here because these are guys that are considered to be just off the elite level, If he cannot dictate the tempo, how does he cope? Does he survive that onslaught? Let me know what you think about that. I can't remember if I've mentioned this already, but I've yet to see Stanionis Batayev, so I'll bring a video midweek. So instead what I'm going to do is add some additional comments to the Errol Spence-Ugas fight. You know, I've got a couple of comments on here to say, you're just a Terence Crawford fanboy. Listen, man, if my preview and post-fight review, where I talk about the technical excellence of Errol Spence, does not show you that I think the man's incredible, then I don't know what to tell you. What, am I not allowed to rate two fighters? You guys use this mentality because what you do is you align yourselves with promotional companies. I'm a PBC guy, I'm a Matchroom guy, I'm a Top Rank guy, and you guys support according to that. I don't do those things. In any other sport, it's not necessary to do those things. I can say Djokovic is an amazing tennis player. So's Medvedev. I can say Man City are a quality football team. So are Liverpool. You don't get anyone saying, what do you mean? How can you rate one and how can you rate both of them? You got to rate one or the other. What are you chatting about? They are elite level operators and they're operating at an elite level. That does not mean that I cannot come in and say what Ugas did was unusual. That the referee essentially giving him a breather with a gum shield was the wrong thing to do. What are you talking about? In other words, you've got to put someone on a pedestal. Otherwise you're a fanboy or something. It's so stupid. Now, I want to give a little shout out to Papoose316 as well, because something he mentioned in my preview, in the comments of my preview, something that I also thought, which is why I used the term no special effects, something that Floyd Mayweather used about Golovkin. He basically came out and said, for him, Errol Spence isn't too dissimilar to Golovkin. Now, the way in which they go about their work, the method that they use, their attributes are different, okay? They're different. But the idea of methodically breaking you down behind a consistent jab, the idea that they've got two of the best hand positioning in the sport, their defense is so underrated as a result. These are just facts, right? They're superb at what they do without necessarily being the fastest guys. They are quick in terms of they're one step ahead often with their mind, and so they're able to get from A to B quickly, but they're not the fastest in terms of hand speed or foot speed. They're very fast actually, but in terms of hand speed, they're not particularly the fastest guys. There's similarities there, and yet you have Errol Spence fans that will mug off Golovkin and they'll say things like, why did he never come out of his division? Well, what? For the same reason that Spence hasn't, right? Is that why? Because he didn't need to, because he had unfinished business in that division. And by the same token, you have Golovkin fans that do the same with Spence. I don't play these games here. I'm a fan of top level operators. I want to see, like an engineer, I want to know what's happening. Why is it happening? How do I overcome that? What do I do to beat that? Right? If I'm fighting this guy, how do I approach it? This is what entertains me. I don't play these things like they're superheroes and you got to worship these deities. Right? Answer the questions that I'm posing to you. Why did Ugas do what he did? That's all I'm asking. If you go onto Twitter and you type into the search engine, Errol Spence fixed or fix, you'll see how many people were saying it was a fixed fight. It would be remiss of me as a boxing analyst not to address it. I gave you the alternatives for that. I didn't tell you that it's definitely fixed. But how do you expect me not to ask the question or ask the question of whether the referee helped him? How do you expect me to do that as an analyst? I have to pose the question to you guys. And then I gave you the opposing sides of an argument. What more can I do that's fairer than that? Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Please hit that like button, subscribe button, notifications button. We've hit 4,000. Let's see if we can get to 5,000. Thanks for watching, everyone. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.